GM,
Jam.
Falcor, Jose, Funkcracker, Stick, Ahota, Dominic Bain, Deadshot. How are you guys doing today? This fine Wednesday afternoon for me, morning for Dominic Bain, I guess.
Yes, sir. 10:01.
10:01. And the energy drink.
The Red
the
Bulls
Bains
are
already.
flowing. The Red Bulls are flowing. I promise you that, bro. The
Mhm.
Red Bulls are flowing.
This
Yeah,
is the way.
this is the way. Yeah. GM to everyone in the chat. MK, Kibimi, Caillou, Armstrong, Bob, Morty McFly, Onizuki Eikichi. I never know how to say it. I think I got it right. Onizuka Eikichi, Bohemian, Quindar, Ager, Speakul, all legends. All the legends came for the Atlas Locker Addendum, boys. I think
Bro,
it's
they
going to
knew
be a
we
good
are
one.
cooking, bro. They know we are cooking.
We are cooking,
They
yes.
know we're cooking.
I'm trying to turn my camera on, but it's not working for some reason.
You are too beautiful, bro.
Yeah, it doesn't get to load my prettiness.
Yeah, I would need a 32K camera.
I'm going with the Tufa background today. Wearing Tufa background for today.
Look who we have here.
And we have the one and only.
We have a very special guest today.
Fashionably late.
Oh, you're fine. We're chilling. The first part of the brew, we just get on the noteworthy news, step by step, steady. That's how it goes.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
for what it's worth, the call I was just on was some very exciting progress towards the Apollo network development. So it was a worthy time spent. Not the topic of conversation today, but exciting all the same.
Started off hot with leaks.
I like it.
I like it.
Leaks coming directly from a meeting that just happened. So they're fresh. Brett is probably dying in the audience right now. I don't know if he's out there, but
Hot off the griddle.
yeah. But we'll start as always with some noteworthy news on what happened during the week and some highlights. We wanted to share first that the council, the Star Atlas Council, the Star Atlas DAO Council, is now hosting regular meetings. So this week, yesterday, they hosted a PIP review meeting where they went over all the PIPs that are in the pipeline and, well, basically discussed with the people. So very open discussion. It was a great meeting. I was there for the tail end of it, but they went over the PIPs and they're looking solid. And things are moving forward in the DAO side of things. So I highly recommend checking that out. And on Friday, they have a new event. I don't know if Dom or just I can drop the link in the chat, where they will have the office hours. Basically, you can, if you have a PIP or if you have an idea, you can go talk directly with the DAO Council, and they will be able to guide you on the PIP creation or ideation and just help you drive things forward. So definitely go check that out. Dom just posted the link in the chat. So if you're interested in participating in the ecosystem fund, there is money available for anyone to build something on top of Star Atlas, and the DAO Council can help you get there. So definitely worth checking out. Highly recommend.
Man, if you want to build anything Star Atlas related, just go to these council office hours, the DAO office hours, ask them any question you want. They are making themselves completely available to any and all questions that you may have. Just join it. If you even have a remnant of an idea, a fragment of an idea, just go there. We have a DAO for this. We have a treasury for this. The DAO is ready to work. It's ready to work. Go to the office hours. Make your voice heard. Get some support for a project you want to do. Get your creative juices flowing. Let's do it.
But guys, when
Yeah.
are we adding utility for Polus?
True.
It's right there.
True.
It's right there. Yeah, ecosystem development at its finest. We are getting some pips moving in the pipeline, like the German meetup, and also I think they reviewed also the community meetups platform that Intergalactic Herald proposed to build. So shout out to the builders in the ecosystem and to anyone who is building something. Again, you can request funds from the DAO via the ecosystem fund to just fund your development, pay for the servers, anything you need. Same for the RPCs. If you are running into RPC costs, make sure to send us submit the form that we have in the build program, because we have free RPC nodes for free RPC calls for builders in our ecosystem. So worth considering for sure. But yeah,
Pip it.
moving from that, yeah, pip it and ship it. Pip it and ship it. And moving on from that, we have the Golden Carnival this week as always. So this week is the female week, and there's a tank ship up for grabs. And I don't know, we'll see how things go. After next week we have the mystery week. So maybe some people will be saving tickets. Maybe they will go all in on this one. I don't know. Just say, what does your digit analysis tell you here?
Bro, Santi is
Decent
trying to get me
analysis.
to share my strategy here, live action, bro. But what I'll tell you is that I'm going for the 2 weeks. Like, it's the last chance you have in the Golden Carnival, like those last 2 weeks. So I'm going both of them and pray to the cosmic currents. That's all one can do.
Yeah. Having the cosmic currents in your favor goes a long way, for sure.
I just posted Jose's strategy in chat.
Basically that, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so make sure to join us on Friday. As always, we have the pre-game show where we play the Marvel games, and you can win prizes. If you're not lucky with the tickets, you can try your luck with the Marvel race. So
If the Golden
Who
Carnival
knows?
don't got you, the Marvel games got you. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Sure.
I
Don't
think
worry.
I've made more off of the marble games than I have off of the carnival.
True.
It's like
It's a
consolation
simple.
prize.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Santi can say that
Then
as well.
yeah, I won 2 Marvel races. I'm proud of that. But then the Golden Carnival destroyed me so far. So yeah.
When do we get skill-based marble racing?
Dude, we need that
That would be
actually.
insane. Yeah, we should build that on Star Atlas for real.
Yeah.
Where's Danny at?
We
What Danny's
pivot.
doing.
We pivot to Marvel
Yeah.
racing.
instead of marbles, it'll just be spaceships, and it'll be the
Exactly.
same exact thing.
Same thing,
Yeah, it's just
exactly.
type play in the chat. Exclamation point play. And you're all set. But yeah, on other news, Michael was yesterday in the Jupe and Jews interview. I think it was a great one. I listened to half of it. Need to catch up to the last half. But I liked Michael. You got really into details on like personal story and also sharing in depth the Star Atlas journey as well. At least that's what I heard. So it's a cool listen. I liked it. It was a great interview.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
It was really good. The people actually, even the hosts were really cool too. I like their vibe. It was a good interview. Definitely recommend watching that one.
Yeah, and they really did their research as well, which I like. We had Irish from their team joining Bruce and asking questions. So it's always good when people care about the project itself and actually get you on an interview and have all the previous context on what we do and how. So
Mhm.
it was a great interview. Dom just posted the link in the chat for anyone who wants to go check that out. And then Another thing is Sage. We had an update. I think it was yesterday or the day before, where we moved some data from Starcom B1 to Starcom B2. So that is causing now some turbulences and some issues. We have been collecting them basically for the past 1 day and a half in tickets, but we have a list of known issues. You can find them on minor announcements, the last message on minor announcements. So there are issues like not seeing certain crafting recipes, missing crafting instance, seeing fleet crafting recipes at non-CSS starbase, missing crew, issues with importing crew, and some high CPU usage for some users. So if you're experiencing any of these issues, don't worry, our team is working on it right now. We are fully aware. And if you're experiencing an issue that is different from that one, please create a ticket so we can track it and get it reported. But
Yeah, it was
yeah,
a nice
it was a
little
big migration.
Ninja V2 launch of Starcom. We were hoping to sneak it out in the middle of the night and nobody would notice. Wasn't the case. We got busted, but yeah, like you said, the team's jamming away on fixes right now.
The good thing is Sage is not fully working right now, so everybody's here at the brew to listen to you, Michael. You just
That
have
was
to
by
keep them
design.
entertained.
That was a
It was
feature, not a
by
bug.
design.
Just as we intended.
User behavior. Nah. But yeah, I think that covers it. I don't know, Dom, Jose, did I miss anything? Should we cover something else before we get on the main topic for today?
I would like to give a shout out to J.A. Mountain, who is here. He was one of the biggest winners in the last week's Golden Carnival. He
Hell
watches the
yeah.
brew every week.
Good.
Doesn't talk too much, but he's always here. So
Where's
shout out,
GA
man.
Mountain, bro?
Congratulations.
GA Mountain man.
He's there. He's there. He's there in the audience.
Dude, GA
GA
Mountain
Congratulations.
Man, he won a maiden heart with how many tickets? It was like $10 in tickets.
It
Dude,
was
yeah.
$10 up.
1,000
Insane.
tickets.
Insane.
Won a maiden heart.
Insane.
Dude.
Santi, how much did you pay for 2 crew packs?
Ah,
He's a toxic
Nah.
Santi, bro.
$200
brought it
crew
up.
packs, bro.
He brought it up. He brought it
Brought
up.
it on, bro.
I'll share my story. I will share my story. In one of the weeks, I won't say which one, I put 1K liquid into golden tickets and won 2 crew packs. So I basically paid $500 per crew pack.
$500 crew pack right there. That's $100 a crew
He
right
was-
there, baby.
He was so.
But it was a
mad, bro.
great experience. It was a great experience.
It's
Hey,
all
man,
about
you
the
gotta
friends you make along the way.
That's right. You've got a story now. That's invaluable.
Yeah, for sure.
This
Yeah.
that gif is Santi under the desk right now. The Arthur.
That is me right now. But yeah, it was fun. I didn't open the crew packs yet. Who knows? Maybe I pull an anomaly.
Oh, true.
True.
Who knows? Congrats.
That one's for GA Mountain Man.
Yeah.
Congrats. Now give me the maiden heart.
Jesus.
But yeah, now thank you, Michael, so much for bringing that up. And now we can move to the main topic for today, which is the Atlas Locker Addendum. And I think it's good to start with just framing what we want to do here, guys. Basically, what we want to show you guys today is basically a draft. So we want your feedback, and this is a soft proposal, let's say, for open discussion. So I don't know, Michael, if you want to add any comments to that, but just to set expectations, right, going into the discussion for today.
Yeah, well, 2 things. We do have a big announcement coming out later today as well with respect to fleet rentals. And so what I wanted to accomplish here was coupling the Atlas Locker Addendum with the fleet rental announcement. You'll be getting that information again later today. We'll be releasing that. But there are some corresponding benefits within the Atlas Locker Addendum that will apply to fleet, not free rentals, fleet rentals, Bohemian. But not only are there benefits within the Atlas Locker, but I also envision that fleet rentals at least has potential to bring in a new audience, and that could be across multiple sectors, whether that's emerging market players that maybe don't have significant capital to, purchase ships with. They want to be able to get access into the game. They're going to be able to do that with fleet rentals at a much lower initial upfront cost to be able to at least get in, access assets, play, earn with those assets. Now, what I'm hoping for that particular audience segment is that they will consider reinvesting their earnings into purchasing their own assets so that they can leverage those, and operate their fleets and grow over time. That may or may not happen, but that's one segment. Existing players, you all, and especially as we roll out more mechanics in the future, things like C4. I'm especially considering combat and kind of the necessity to defend territory lines. I think it's highly conceivable that players will want to, at least for a short term, bolster up their defenses or offenses by renting fleets from other players and using those in some type of attack or defense strategy. And then third, I think there's a big opportunity with what I've been calling kind of generally the investor mentality, and that's those are people that would consider purchasing these game assets not with the intention of ever even playing the game themselves, but because they see a passive revenue or passive income opportunity in owning capital assets within the Star Atlas ecosystem. I would say this is analogous to something like owning real estate, where if you own an apartment complex or you own some single family homes, you rent those out, right? And you're picking up cash flows off of the rent as part of a broad investment strategy. And so I think across all of those, we have potential to see user growth. And I bring that up, and again, why it corresponds with what we're going to discuss today with the Atlas Locker is that there's a little bit of a cold start problem with something like Atlas Locker enhancements, wherein I do believe that we'll see additional participation in the Atlas Locker from everyone that's an existing member of our community, because we want to make the incentives very strong there. But if we really want to see the Atlas Locker perform well, it needs to be coupled with more dramatic user growth. And that's a big theme for us over the course of the year with a lot of the features that we have coming out and kind of deploying new go-to-market marketing strategies, is how do we start to stimulate growth within our ecosystem, which is doing well, but it's been pretty stagnant since the launch of Sage. And so, I think this year, with some strategy and with some luck, we'll start to see some more people enter into the ecosystem. And so what I really want to do is see player growth, and then all of those new players, I want them to immediately consider the Atlas Locker as a major resource for them. And for lack of a better term, I want people to feel like it is stupid not to participate in the locker. Now that will also serve as a pretty considerable Atlas game emission sink for those tokens, because in very much the same way that I want to see people that are renting fleets reinvest into buying more assets, I want to see people that are earning Atlas from the game take advantage of that Atlas Locker and think of it as almost a savings account. And so we can kind of from there, I think, jump into and share the addendum outline and start to go through some of these benefits. And I think it'll make a little bit more sense what I'm saying here. But to Santi's point, I did want to contextualize this just to be perfectly clear. This is more of a soft proposal. We're opening this for discussion. None of these features are guaranteed to come online. We welcome your feedback on what you like and what you don't like. This is a very rough template, by the way. This is not exhaustive. Like, we can add a lot of features to this as well over time, but I think we've got some really cool stuff in here to talk about today.
Yeah, and there's a question in the chat if we are going to share the document, and we're going to make it public after some design work, of course. We first want the community here, the close community, the Atlas Brew audience, and the ones who are on the day-to-day with us to get a first look at it and feedback. and then we'll make things public.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to say that we should have a published version of this document out before the end of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can probably skip the executive summary, Santi. For like that is context for people that are maybe new to the ecosystem, but I think you all understand that a big portion of or motivation for having the Atlas Locker is to drive utility and tokenomics for Atlas specifically. You also, I guess I'll just recap really quickly. You also know that there are some existing benefits of participating in the Atlas Locker, which really consists of being able to earn emissions of Polis based on your proportional share of the total pool on a daily basis. And then, of course, we have that discount fee structure on the marketplace where you can get upwards of 85% discount on the royalty fees if you are in the top tier, which gets us to A1 here, which is an updated locker tier structure. You'll note here there are 2 asterisks. I'll start with 6. This was, we had seen a number of different requests come in because there is quite an exponential, maybe not exponential, but multiplicative increase in the locked balance requirement to reach between 5 and 6 previously. 10,000 was the original starting point, and you can see it went from 10 to 70 to 560,000 to 5.6 million to get to what was previously tier 4, and then it was 72 million to get to tier 6. Now, as the locker is currently structured, you are able to go from 45% discount on royalty fees up to 85% discount on royalty fees, and so we wanted the locker requirements to be commensurate with that. But given the requests that have come in from people that want an intermediary range that's a little bit more attainable than the 72 million, as well as a bunch of the other benefits that we'll be discussing here today, we thought it was reasonable to add a midpoint tier between 5 and 6, which is the new 6 now, excuse me, 4 and 5, which is now 6, and that's the 22.6 million range. I actually want to come back to one. There's a single feature that we'll discuss that really this tier 1,000 Atlas minimum requirement would apply to. It does not really apply to everything else. It's not really a substantial enough amount to justify rewards throughout the entire Atlas Locker structure, but it does apply to a single point here, and we'll get into that a bit later.
Michael, what I think we should do is we stop at each one in case there are questions. So
Sure.
here on the A1, before we go to A2, I want to check in the community if there are any questions or clarifications. We basically went from 5 tiers to 7 to make sure we accommodate for smaller players on tier 1 and adding 1 extra tier in between what was before 4 and 5. So.
Yeah, there's also, again, this is really soft proposal. I think there's some interest out there. I know there's some interest out there for what I've called the perpetual lock, what Virtual has requested as being a 426-year lock, effectively the same thing. But I won't rule that out. I think that there is some possibility of having an infinite lock with some significantly increased voting weight for one. Your PVP, your Polis voting power is derived as a function of both the quantity locked and the time locked, and the longer you have it locked, the bigger the multiplier. So if we were to introduce a perpetual lock, we could introduce a substantially higher multiplier. With that said, we haven't gone and done the kind of risk analysis of what the implications of a 40 or 50x multiplier on a perpetual lock would be. So I'm not committing to that right now. I'm just saying it's not off the table. I had one more thing there. I guess the core benefit is that of having a perpetual lock is that those tokens would be effectively burned. It would be a reduction of supply because there would be no way to ever withdraw those from the feature.
Well, you're talking also for the Atlas Locker, Michael, on this? Because I know it was discussed for the Polish Locker.
I'm sorry. Yes, that is 100% on the Polis Locker.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Any other questions before I scroll?
I don't
Yeah, I
see
think we
any.
can move on.
See any either. Okay.
Okay. As an introduction to these next sections, I would also contextualize this and say that there are we've kind of divided these between what we're outlining is Sage benefits, but realistically, they're Star Atlas game benefits, as you all know. A lot of the Sage mechanics are being integrated into Unreal Engine, things like Fleet Command, which is effectively Sage in Unreal Engine. So we've defined them as Sage benefits, but they are just more broadly Star Atlas benefits. And so the first feature here would be crafting fee discounts. This is a pretty significant cost center for players. Those crafting fees are effectively a form of taxation on the economy. Anytime you're crafting items, there's a calculation that goes into how much you pay to craft. And if you were to participate in the Atlas Locker, the proposal is pretty straightforward. There's a tiered structure on discounts to the gross amount of that fee. So instead of 7%, for example, you could get that down to 5%.
We have a question here from Sim. Can we expect a separation of concerns for Polis and Atlas, Lock Polis for politics and development of the game, while Atlas Locker for discounts, increasing mining efficiency, bonus to production, stuff like that? Is that kind of where your head's at, Swag?
I would say that's the way this is structured. So yes, and I do still very much have a complete separation of utility between the two tokens. Polis is leveraged for ecosystem governance right now. That's what we're seeing with the council driving pips through and ways to leverage the treasury of the DAO today, how to spend that capital to help grow the ecosystem. Who knows in the future? We have a few ideas, but I would certainly love to see a way for us to legally and legitimately create revenue distribution out of the DAO when the time is right for that. I do think it makes a lot of sense right now for the DAO to reinvest into the ecosystem itself, which means helping to fund third-party developers, co-creators, helping to fund events, helping to fund marketing and promotion, perhaps engaging with content creators, all of these things that are going to drive awareness of Star Atlas, but really using that treasury balance as a way to grow the ecosystem, as a way to distribute, as opposed to being a way to distribute value. Because ultimately, if you can increase the size of that pool, then the value of any revenue distribution is also substantially higher. So it's kind of like a startup. It's you want to reinvest into yourself as much as possible, and realistically, as companies go through maturation, you're not no high growth company is distributing dividends per se out to shareholders. And I'm not drawing a one-to-one comparison. I'm just making an analogy here. But small companies or fast growing companies reinvest into their growth until they reach a point of maturity and stabilize and things like revenues, and then they start distributing dividends out to shareholders in much the same way I think the DAO should be reinvesting into itself in the form of investing into the ecosystem. So that was kind of an extended answer, but yes, Polis, completely separate functionality, but generally used for governance, both ecosystem wide and within the game. And to when we get to those gameplay mechanics, it would be for things like defining taxation schedules for specific regions within space, or otherwise modifying the rules of the game, so to speak.
Nice.
Cool. I don't see any more questions. Are you ready to scroll down, Swag?
Yeah, I think that one, that one's pretty straightforward. I think a bunch of these will be straightforward. So, but happy just to continue rolling through here.
Ship it.
Yep, reduced respawn time. This is going to be become more prevalent when we get combat in the game. And if your ship gets destroyed in, say, safe zone, if we have, say, PvE functionality there, or if you self-destruct, or if you get destroyed out in MRZ and there's a respawn on the ships. I'm not going to get into the whole conversation about 2 classes of ships right here. Very hot button issue. Or insurance on ships in the HRZ and essentially immune ships in HRZ.
Let's avoid that
So
rabbit hole again.
so we'll assume that all things are moving forward as outlined originally. But yes, so if you get destroyed in the MRZ, your ship will need to be repaired, which is probably going to have a cost associated with it, and your ship is going to need to be rebuilt, which will be accompanied by some respawn time. And so participating in the locker gives you the ability to reduce those respawn times.
Cool. Anybody have any questions on respawn timer before we move on? Anybody in chat here? Okay.
We won't address Morty McFly's question because that is that whole can of worms.
Not today, Morty McFly. All right.
Cool. So NPC merchant reputation. This one's pretty high level in terms of what we want to do with this, but the general concept is that as we get further into game development, again, you'll be discovering loot, for example, while you're just playing the game and completing missions or killing NPCs in PvE combat. And as in any MMO, you're going to be interacting with various merchant NPCs at star bases or central space stations regularly. Now, this concept with the NPC merchant reputation means you might have more options, or you will likely have more options available to you on both the buy side and the sell side. Maybe there's a specific resource that you're looking for that can occasionally appear at one of these NPC merchants. And if you aren't in the locker, the probability of you having access to that resource might be lower. If you have a higher reputation with the NPC, then maybe some portion of that supply will be available to the merchant. And likewise on the sell side, if you want to sell some items to an NPC, it's possible that an NPC will only purchase certain items or certain quantity of items from players before that emission is exhausted. Now, keep in mind, if the structure in the future is I went out and destroyed some ships and I collected some loot and it's all junk loot, I don't want to do anything with it, I just need to go sell this to an NPC, that is going to create Atlas emissions. That will be part of the emission curve in the future and probably deprecate and replace things like more consistent or reliable earnings off of, say, FICs. Now, that means maybe the merchant at a location that's near you doesn't buy the items that you've collected, and so you have to go find a place to, for lack of a better word, dump that junk loot. And so this merchant reputation system would, again, maybe make various resource buying from the merchant perspective, selling opportunities available to you as a player. We also have in here a concept of kind of premium and discount. So it's possible that you can sell items for a little bit more. It's possible that you can buy items for a little bit less, depending on the tier that you've reached within this Atlas Locker structure.
Cool. Any questions here, anybody?
I don't see any questions.
A4 is
There is
interesting.
Yeah, I
There
mean,
is a deeper
Caillou,
question on percentage. Yeah, that one was the one I was going to bring up, Michael. Like percentage
Yeah,
of Atlas Lock depending on the current BWAP.
I think that a system like that would be, first of all, I don't think that's necessarily a completely fair system. I could see that actually being disadvantageous to larger players, and not everybody wants to create a proportional balance of, say, Atlas versus VWAP of ships held. If you're a larger player, maybe you have, we have players with millions of dollars worth of ships. They might not want to be holding $1 million+ worth of Atlas. And so if you have a system that is proportion based on in terms of benefits, which does benefit the, in theory, the smaller asset holder wallets, well, it kind of disproportionately disadvantages the larger players. So realistically, I think the most fair system here is to use a fixed numerical value, and everyone falls under the same umbrella in terms of how you get these benefits. There's some other things later, by the way, which I think will somewhat address this, and so I'll hold further comment on that particular topic until we get to point 11 here.
Point
I'm gonna
11.
So we've
Lots of
got
stuff to go through.
yeah. So we've gone through the merchant reputation, Sage recipe access. This one we discussed pretty considerably with Danny. So Chris and I and Gareth discussed this with Danny. What we want to ensure is that this doesn't create a pay-to-win system. I probably should have said that earlier on. This is creating benefits for the players who are participating and who are leveraging or taking earnings from their game and participating in this particular mechanism, but we don't want to disadvantage all of the other players. Conceptually, a lot of these same benefits can actually be earned through gameplay, so through grinding in game. Again, when we get to point 11, we can cover that in a bit more detail. But do we lose Santi?
No, I'm here.
He's here.
Just
Okay.
my camera
Okay.
is acting up.
Okay. And so what's important here is that we're not offering exclusive functional asset recipe access through this, but at least at a high level, being able to get access to probably cosmetics as a core recipe the players can use. But also outlined in here is that you can maybe get alternative variations on the way that you can craft certain items. Now, Chris has put in here a more efficient fuel recipe, just as a blanket example, but perhaps it can cost less resources or use different resources that makes it possible for you to craft the same item that any other player can already craft. Again, you just are getting benefits of recipe access by being in the locker.
Cool. Any questions here, guys? Number 5.
Number 5.
Number 5.
6 to go.
All right. I'm scrolling. Okay. Right here.
This is an exciting one. This one's actually a little bit of a reveal for you guys because we haven't talked about it too much, but we did bring someone on at the start of the year to lead up our AI division internally. There's a bunch of different ways that we can use AI across the team for maybe some of the more, I'll say boring for the public eye and less front facing, is that we can actually leverage AI systems to help our team produce content and code faster. So we are looking at kind of leveraging those tools. But on the front facing side of things, we have this and have had this idea of Sage AI in game as a companion or virtual assistant of sorts, really going back to the inception of the project. And AI has made significant progress over time, and so one of those things again that we'll leverage AI for is having a virtual assistant that can be your companion, that can help you navigate the game. This is really good for player onboarding, by the way. New players, we have some things cooking right now that are looking very promising for a not too distant and or near term launch, but a way to guide players through the gameplay experience by interfacing with a virtual assistant using an LLM backend. So I think that's really cool. Now, we can also add a bunch of enhancements to this that could be unlocked by participating in the locker. And that might be well, I'll say like we want a default level of this available to all players. If you don't know how to play the game, you can use the assistant to kind of guide you through the process. And it can also give you data and information about what's happening across the universe. But just one simple example would be you want to ask the AI what is the most profitable resource for you to mine and craft during a particular play session. Hey, I'm logging in today. Sage, what should I do? How do I make the most money today? Well, features like that can be unlocked by and gated behind the Atlas Locker.
Saw some questions here. I think Groove had a good question, and I don't think this is specific to A6, but maybe the whole addendum here. When formulating these tiered breakpoints, has the team considered how long it'd take a player with X assets to move up the ladder through gameplay? Is that something you guys have considered?
We have, and that actually, if we go all the way back to the original tier structure that was outlined with that 1,000 Atlas Locker tier, there's a reason why we've applied that value to tier 1. So Chris has done the work. Now I understand the concern is, do we create a situation where the wealthy players have a significant advantage over other players? Again, when we get to 0.11, I think it will address some of this, because there are ways to gain access to these features just through grinding the game. So it doesn't necessarily, the Atlas Locker is almost a convenience feature. If you want immediate access to these benefits, you can do it through the Atlas Locker. Now, if building your wealth and being able to reach various tiers is problematic, which I could see being true for a large portion of our population, then there are ways to grind in the game and essentially earn access to similar functionality. 0.11 will kind of clarify this a little bit more.
Cool.
There was a question on the AI virtual assistant, which was around if we can, if it will be a standard for everyone, or you can customize the assistant. I guess it's a little bit for the future.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit too early to say. There's going to be the way I would see this playing out is there's a standard model that's accessible to every new player in the game. I would say I would love to see a unique personality develop for your specific Sage AI in game as you interface and interact with it more. The movie Her comes up a lot, but we'll see how sophisticated these models get. But maybe Sage is your girlfriend.
No, don't bring that up.
Hey, yo!
Finally,
He was
people
already
here in
out
this
there
chat
in
will
the
have
chat.
girlfriends.
He was already out there in the
Yo!
chat. Oh man, yeah. Moving on.
Yeah, I'm still here. One second. Turn the camera back on.
A7, Sage blockchain fee subsidy.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
in
So
time. There we go.
yeah. So we that kind of covers some of the game benefit category items, and now we're rolling into more of the ecosystem benefits. I'll say, this again is a bit of a soft proposal. We've got some work that we're doing on, what we call Project Apollo right now. That's our own dedicated network. We've talked about that quite a lot. So I think most of you are pretty familiar with what we want to accomplish with this separate network for gameplay functionality. However, to the extent that we continue to operate on Solana mainnet, we do understand and appreciate that network transaction costs do eat into profitability of our players. And so, as we've noted here with the asterisk, this is not something we could implement unilaterally. This proposal would essentially be a call for a DAO proposal or a PIP that would use the DAO treasury to subsidize player transaction costs in game. And this is actually where Chris has done substantial work in considering a player wallet size, the amount of transactions those players make, and their daily transaction fee cost denominated in Sol. And so aligning the Atlas Locker requirement with what is effectively the scale of the operation of a player, and then providing a fee subsidy. Now it looks pretty small, 0.001 Sol per day, but in most instances, that's actually sufficient to cover most of the transaction costs of a user. And it scales up. Now, what we do have here, and I think this is considerably important, is an ecosystem maximum, and that's on a daily basis. That would be the DAO treasury would cover up to 10 Sol per day in total cost of our player base. And what we want to minimize or mitigate is the potential for effectively bankrupting the DAO. If there was an unlimited amount of Sol applied to a player transaction cost, then you could be spending more money than you're making per day. Now, Chris has outlined in this particular item that right now the DAO is making, I guess, what would effectively be 40 Sol per day, or it's covering it by 4x. That is highly variable, though, and it does depend on priority fees on the network itself. And so the justification for this, and this might be a hotly debated issue, but the justification for this is that if players are buying Atlas, locking Atlas, that is a direct benefit to the ecosystem. And in terms of being a token sink, as you know, the Polis or the Star Atlas DAO has a substantial amount of Atlas in its treasury. To whatever extent there's a positive impact on token price, the DAO directly benefits from that. And now, yes, Bohemian, we've outlined that this absolutely would require a PIP. We cannot unilaterally implement this ourselves. However, if the ecosystem is benefiting, if the value of the DAO treasury is going up as a result of functionality like this, then it can subsidize some of the costs of the player base. Now, in some cases, this means that there is a cap, and so if you're a player that's processing a lot of transactions, it's not going to cover 100% of your transactions. It will cover a portion of them. But by and large, based on the analysis, this would cover a substantial amount, in some cases all, and in some cases not all of the transaction costs, depending on the player actions. Now, this might all be a moot point, by the way, because should we ever migrate to an entirely new network, then this feature wouldn't be necessary anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I don't see any questions. Santi, you see any questions before I scroll? Oh, no, I just saw a question. Pilot says, question, I like what I hear, but might it be too early to push changes meant to onboard new players? You addressed some of this already. I like this subsidy idea, but I am concerned that the first experience for any new players won't be optimal given the frequency of failed transactions. You only really get one chance to gather a player.
We kind of covered that in the previous discussions that we had with Michael at the Brew. I mean, you can spend some time on it, Michael, if you want.
I would say the risk of not growing is greater than the risk of a poor player experience. To be honest with you, I think we offer enough value through gameplay mechanics, financial incentives, and potential for the future that if anybody is coming into the game and they have instability in network transactions and they leave as a result of that, they probably weren't going to stick around for a long time anyway. So I would say it's more critical for us to grow as a user base, which helps elevate the economy and create more opportunity throughout the economy for all of you. Also, that obviously helps drive revenues for us. So I would argue that growing our ecosystem and attracting new users is more important right now than concerns about that initial player experience.
Cool. Thank you, Swag. All right, moving on.
Another feature.
There you go.
Yeah, so another feature that might be temporary in nature, and I'm curious to see the feedback on this one. We thought it was kind of interesting. So as you know, right now, Faction Fleet, that's Score, colloquially referred to, has been around since December of 2021. The reward side of the equation has been reduced 67% over time, over two different reductions, 33% reduction and then another 33% reduction. Yeah, with the fractions in there. So roughly 67% reduction in earnings over time. Now, this mechanism would probably be pretty easy for us to implement. But the idea is that the higher locker balance you have, the lower your input costs are on operating those fleets. So it would consume less R4, which in turn results in higher profitability of the player. Now, I think this one's kind of interesting. I don't know exactly how long Faction Fleet is going to be around, and I do think that to at least some extent, the success of fleet rentals, which again I kind of teased out at the beginning of the call here, the success of fleet rentals is going to determine how much remaining time there is in the life cycle of Faction Fleet. But this could be something that could be implemented relatively quickly and then just deprecated when Faction Fleet is deprecated.
Any questions here, guys, before we scroll? I see some people typing.
Mixed opinions for this one.
Yeah, this is the one, the biggest feedback I've seen for one yet. So make it leave the basement and get a job. All right.
Dude,
All right,
they're destroying Faction Fleet. Oh my God.
Wait, were they talking, Don? Were they talking about Score, or were they talking about you?
Damn, bro. Damn.
No
You know what,
way.
bro? It's fine, bro. It's
Kelsey.
fine, bro. Where's Kel? Wait, Kelsey in the audience.
Kelsey's in the audience, Mike.
Kelsey,
I'll behave.
help me, Kelsey.
There's no harder working guy in Web3. Actually, dude, you got a ton of compliments from the Jupe and Juice guys yesterday, because they said my intern was absolutely cooking.
That's not me, bro. That's the intern. All right, A9.
All right, this one I'm quite fond of. Subject to some additional legal review, but the concept here is that we've got fleet rentals coming out for one. Two, Automata has a pretty considerable balance of unsold ships within our inventory. Those ships are not being utilized in any way throughout the ecosystem right now. They are available inventory should players come in and want to purchase them, but there's a possibility that we, using some formula, we take a balance of those Automata ships out of our inventory, we make them available and seed them as initial liquidity on the fleet rental system, and it will be based on the loosely based on the dollar value of total Atlas locked. So the more Atlas that gets locked, the more fleets we make available on the fleet rental system. Now, all of the fees that are generated off of those don't go to Automata. They don't. We don't make any rental fees. There is a cost, obviously, to rent these ships, and that revenue needs to go somewhere. So that revenue would go to the DAO, and the way we've structured it here is that more appropriately, that revenue would be proportionately distributed out to anyone who's participating in the Atlas Locker. So very basic example and kind of low dollar value example. The ships or the fleets that Automata makes available generate $100 per day. You have 1% of the total proportional locked balance in the Atlas Locker. That means you make $1 per day as a supplement just from the fleet rental program itself. Now that's on top of the discounts that you get, these other benefits that you get, as well as your daily Polis emissions. Now it's also entirely possible, I see your comment, Ronald, that there's a some distribution percentage. Some of it goes to the DAO, some of it goes to the Atlas Locker participants. All of that is flexible. But generally speaking, the idea is that the revenue from the fleets that Automata rents out goes to the DAO and is distributed in some way to people that are also participating in that Atlas Locker. So it's a revenue supplement.
Nice.
Cool. I don't see.
Lots
Well, I
of
see
people
several people
typing.
typing. So
Yeah.
we'll be competing. I think this is a fair. I think this is a fair question, just because I'm interested in kind of what we would rent out these ships for too. So, like, will we be competing with bots lowering prices, trying to rent ships? So, will people be competing with our own kind of listings from this A9 basically swag? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think so. We don't want to be drivers of the market, obviously. We want, we want to be kind of free market participants. But before I even get to the topic of what is the price that we set on the rentals, there's also an entire manual process of getting these fleet rentals enlisted onto that platform in the first place, which means we have to define fleet configuration, which ships we're using in those fleets, and which factions we're making them available in. Maybe just a quick side note on fleet rentals, and I'm sure, actually, I know we have another, I think Chris is discussing next week fleet rentals on the brew, but in order for fleet rentals to work, they do need to be formed fleets and need to be in Sage. You can't just rent a ship from a player's wallet and bring that into Sage. It has to already be in the Sage program. And so what I would like to do is decentralize the process of forming fleets and setting price so that Automata is not directly involved in that process. That means the DAO or players in some way have access to forming those fleets and also enlisting them on the fleet rental system and then setting the prices in a consensus-based manner. Because it would be a lot of work for us as a team to manually form all these fleets, bring them into Sage, form all these fleets, list them on the rental platform, and then manage those rentals. And it's not necessarily a process I want to burden our team with. Otherwise, I'll have Santi do it.
GG's.
I do see several people typing, so I'll give it like 1 second, 1 minute.
A9.1. A percentage of the fee goes to Santi.
Nice.
Let's see.
This is a good question from Larry. Has there been a detailed analysis on inflation caused by potentially renting idle automata inventory? Is there any concerns about that? I guess is the big question here.
Yeah, I understand. We're effectively creating more liquidity in the market, in ship value in VWAP that's out there in circulation as a result of bringing in inventory ships into the market. Now, I mean, there's a similar question that's been asked about what happens when all of the ships that are currently enlisted in faction fleet either enter into the rental market or enter into Sage directly. Now, what I would suggest on that is that my argument is those ships already have the potential to be participating in the Sage economy, and so what I've kind of always said is your opportunity to earn a proportional share of Atlas, not in dollar terms, is higher now than it will probably ever be. I mean, everybody should have the understanding that more ships, more fleets and more assets will enter the game over time, which means you will be competing against more players and more asset value. So your proportional share of Atlas is probably going to go down over time. Now, there's an economic argument in favor of wider distribution of smaller balances to more players and what the positive impact of the tokens can be as a result of that, depending on the motivations of those players. But there should be a full expectation that there will be inflation of game assets over time. Now, the other thing I would suggest, though, is that if your concern is about being diluted in your earnings potential, well, you have every opportunity to participate in renting fleets as well. And I fully anticipate there needs to be some margin. Whoever is renting out fleets, if you're renting out fleets for more than you're going to be able to make in the game, and there's a caveat to this, but if you're renting out fleets and more than your earnings potential in the game, nobody's going to rent that fleet from you, because nobody really wants to rent your fleet and lose money on it. Right? They want to rent your fleet because they can generate a profit off of a lower cost, and there's justification for it in that if you're renting, if you are the person that owns the fleets and you're renting those out to other people, you do not need to dedicate the time in game to generating earnings. This is effectively a labor contract. You're kind of hiring somebody, and what they're picking up is the premium on the amount that it costs to play and it costs to rent against what they're able to earn within the game. And so again, if your concern is that you're going to make less because there's more value in the ecosystem, well, then I would suggest you go participate in the fleet rental system as well and expand your fleet.
Okay, I don't think I see any more questions here unless you have anything else to add to this, Swag. Oh, no, wait. I do see a question from Defiant Wyvern. Sorry. Were you going to say something, Swag?
There's one higher up, and I want to scroll down here, but Bohemian asked about a master table that shows what percentage of fees per tier goes to Automata, DAO, and player for every action or event. I don't know if that's specifically referring to, there's two components to fleet rental, and I don't want to make this all about fleet rentals, but there's two components. There's the cost to rent the asset. That revenue stream is what I'm describing as being distributed back to the DAO or directly to Atlas Locker participants. There's also a rental fee in much the same way that there's a royalty fee on the marketplace. Now, I think we're defining that as 10% initially. I don't remember the specific numbers, but I think the DAO is getting 15% of that. I think Automata is getting 35% of that, and there's a third party team that's actually doing the work on building the fleet rental program and working through the implementation of that into Portal, play.staratlas.com. They make 50%. So I think it's 50% for the third party, 35% for Automata, 15% of the rental fee revenue goes direct to the DAO. And then there's a separate category of what the cost of the rental itself and how is that distributed. I don't know if that was clear or answers your question, but.
And then I did see this question. So would there be a process in which Automata decides when and if to withdraw rented fleets to put them back on the market for sale? I could actually see this happening where maybe we're renting out a ship that's close to being sold out, and then there's still some demand for that ship, and we still have ships that are being rented out that could have been on the market. So good point from Defiant Wyvern here.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. We don't have a process defined right now, but certainly we have a desire to sell ships. That we have a desire to produce revenue. So if a particular asset is in demand and we see inventory depleting of whatever is available in the marketplace, then we would want to pull back on some of that inventory and make that available in the marketplace. And what we would look to do is replace the ships that have been withdrawn from the fleet rental system to put on the marketplace with some different asset so that we could match the dollar value that was available on the fleet rental system originally.
I'm scrolling.
Okay.
A10.
All right. And I know we are at the top of the hour here. This one's pretty straightforward. That fleet rental fee, that 10% fee that I was referring to, that's the cost to the person who owns the fleets that is renting it out to another player. The revenue that they generate off of that rental, they would pay 10% of that into the program. This A10 would provide a discount to those people. This one's really powerful, I think, because again, a lot of the people that I envision as participating in that fleet rental program won't be actual players. These are people that are just going out and buying ships and renting it out to other players. So they're kind of soft touch participants of the ecosystem. However, there's a pretty significant benefit if they also own Atlas and participate in the Atlas Locker. That's about it. That one's straightforward. This is pretty much identical to the way that royalty fee discounts work on marketplace transactions.
Cool. There are a couple of questions out there, but mostly about fleet rentals, which we'll cover in detail next week.
We got a big one here. Holy moly.
Yeah, so this one I'm also quite fond of. I had referred to A11 throughout this document, but um, the idea is that over time, the entire Atlas Locker evolves into a skill tree system that's denominated in points. The way that you can gain points for this skill tree is through 3 different mechanisms as proposed here. Um, I'm going to start, I guess I'll start at the top with the first bullet point, which is in-game progression. So this is what I was talking about in terms of how do we make it possible so that it's not just pay to win and everybody can get access to these while playing the game, and different mechanics within the game, like the trading career, for example, will enable players to earn points, which they can apply to the skill tree, which means they get access to at least available access to all of the same benefits that were outlined here and any benefits that are introduced in the future. You can grind the game, earn points, apply those points within the skill tree branches based on your gameplay, and get the benefits that are most appropriate for you. Maybe you don't care about getting discounts on fleet rental fees, for example, because you're not renting fleets out. Well, don't apply and don't assign any points there because it doesn't impact you. But you do craft a lot, and so you want to go down the crafting branch and assign your points there. The Atlas Locker tier, just participating in this is going to give you a certain amount of points. I don't know what the exact model is right now. We would still have to do work on that when we get to the Atlas Locker skill tree. It's probably not a 1-to-1. You don't get 7 points by reaching 7 tier. Maybe you get 20 points. It depends on how it scales. But the idea is you'll get points based on the tier that you reach. Those points then can be applied throughout the skill tree as well. Curious to get feedback on point number 3, but this one is effectively another convenience mechanism to get access to more points more quickly, which is players can use Atlas. They can buy the points directly as a one-time fixed cost. That revenue would go directly to the DAO, and then they can apply those points, but there's no way to get that money back. Once you buy the points, you've bought the points, right? Whereas everything else here, or at least with respect to the Atlas Locker, that's money that you have locked up. It's out of circulation, but it is recoverable if you ever decide to withdraw your funds from the Atlas Locker, and those points go away. So those are the 3 mechanisms that allow you to gain points. Again, I think what's important here is being able to grind and earn points without having to buy them. And we'll see how this plays out. This is going to be a conversation with game design as well, but I don't think it's likely that you'll be able to max out every single branch within the skill tree. Maybe there's a maximum number of like 50 nodes that could have points assigned, and there's a maximum number of points that can be earned, bought, or gained through the Atlas Locker of like 30. I'm using arbitrary numbers here, but what I do want to see is players needing to make hard decisions to strategize on which branches are most applicable to them. So you can't just max everything out and get max benefits across the board. You have to decide which features are most valuable to you.
Cool. And I think to end it off, I think just while we're waiting for some questions, there is a summary table.
This is just a breakdown, a summary of everything that was outlined above. So the specific mechanism, what the benefits are, and which tier they fall in. I will answer Ager's question here. He asked if you could reassign them. I think there's a bunch of different ways we could do that. I think it would be fair to an extent to let players reassign, although there might be time restrictions on when you can do it. Because if you can just like immediately reassign, then you just Ray, yes, pay to reassign is another thought there. But if you could just immediately reassign, then depending on what action you're taking, if you're making a trade in the marketplace, you assign your points to marketplace discounts. If you're crafting something, you assign your points to crafting discounts. So there's probably a time delay and a cost if you want to reassign your points, but I don't think we should lock people out completely from being able to change their minds later should they want to.
Looking for questions. Looks like everybody likes the table. That's great.
People have their notebooks open right now.
And just because we're at the end here, I do want to remind you guys this whole brew was for the purpose of an early feedback session on this document. So if you guys have any feedback, you want to type it here or you want to message us, however you want to give the feedback, feel free. This is your time to make your voice heard. This is your time to be part of the development process. So let us know how you guys are feeling about the specific ones. I think you guys made A8 abundantly clear, but we want to hear your opinions on everything. So let us know.
Yeah,
Anthony.
if you guys,
Actually, it was the biggest loser.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, none of this is set in stone. It's pretty much a soft proposal. To Dom's point, opening it for discussion. If you hate the whole thing, we can scrap the whole thing and go back to the drawing board. Um, what I do want to accomplish over time is being able to drive additional utility within the Atlas Locker and further incentivize people earning and using the Atlas Locker as a savings account. And I want the perception to be, and the reality to be, that man, I should take all of my earnings from this game and either buy more assets with it um, or lock it in the Atlas Locker because the benefits are so overwhelming that it's worth it to do it. And I could, even point to that final mechanism of being able to purchase these points. You wouldn't maximize the benefits immediately from that if it's some discount to crafting fee. There's effectively a cost benefit analysis there of, all right, well, I have to spend $10 to get a point or whatever the dollar value is. How long is it going to take me to earn that $10 back based on the savings that I encounter within the game? I think that complexity is cool, but I really like the idea of retaining Atlas within the ecosystem, further deepening the sinks there, and just kind of helping create more wealth retained within the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And
Creating a poll right now.
I do see a question. I know we can't answer specifically, just general idea because I've seen it a few times throughout this brew. How much, like, when are you thinking this kind of addendum is implemented? Any timeline you're thinking of? Not to give like exact dates or anything, but just like in a general vicinity of timeline.
yeah, thanks for the reminder. Actually, that was I did want to close with that, which is, in every instance, even if people said do all of this tomorrow, it's going to take development time and resources in order to implement them. So, and we're simply not going to be able to prioritize getting all of these features built. So we will need to prioritize, and I think we'd be looking for additional community feedback on what you feel is most important, most valuable. Some of the easier stuff to implement is probably on the game side. And I also think that that's where some of the most benefit is. But we'd want to prioritize, do you care more about crafting fees or do you care more about discounts to fleet rentals? And we'll have to figure out how those get integrated over time. The actual skill tree and progression system towards this, that's a much longer term project to build that whole functionality out.
Yeah.
I've seen
we
a lot of
created
people
quick
say.
poll. I just wanted to say we created a quick poll for people to go vote, just for very early feedback on this. I'll link it again in the chat, so you can go vote there in the little poll we created.
So I've actually seen a lot of people ask for more tiers. I'm curious on thoughts about that. I know we're adding 2 tiers here, but any thoughts on adding more tiers? Is there a specific reason for this tier structure that makes sense and we shouldn't add more tiers? Pretty curious on your thoughts, and I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to know maybe why adding more tiers isn't a good idea, or maybe adding more tiers is a good idea. Yeah, curious on your thoughts.
I wouldn't want to see more tiers than 7 right now. It adds complexity throughout the entire system, for one. 2, the marginal benefits I don't think really justify having finer granularity between these tiers. For example, a crafting fee discount between 10% and 12.5%, or 2.5% per tier structure. It starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller the more granularly granular you get on the tier structure. And realistically, just being totally honest, there's a psychological component, which is we want these to be aspirational. I want people to want to reach for the next tier up. And if you make it too attainable, then that motivation kind of goes away. So I think people should always be reaching for the next tier until they reach the top tier.
Fair. Cool. I don't see any more questions. Unless I missed one.
Just I saw a comment there on like creating a temporary channel for Atlas Locker feedback. I just created a very quick channel called temporary Atlas Locker feedback, so you can centralize our conversations there, and it's easier for the team to scroll through it. Let me know if you see it. It's right above the Atlas Brew Lounge. Thank you. I don't know who said that. I think it was Sap. Thank you for suggesting that. So yeah, we'll be reading that channel.
I saw 2 more questions. I just want to jump really. Man, there's a lot of comments, so I might have lost one of them. Yeah, I lost one of them, so sorry. I'm not going to be able to answer that one. Enrico Teddy, are the Atlas required fixed, or will it change dynamically or periodically? I definitely think that there's room to modify this over time, especially if you see like a substantial increase in the Atlas price where, it just becomes almost unattainable. Hey, Atlas goes to $1, crazy number. Who's going to put $72 million into the Atlas Locker? We will need to dynamically adjust that, right? So, like, there will probably be some dollar equivalent benchmark against the Atlas required. What I think is really cool about that, and I probably shouldn't even say this, but what I think is cool about that is if you're an early participant, and you have a locked balance and the requirements go down over time, that's effectively a way for you to unlock a certain amount of that value in liquidity back to yourself. If the 72 million requirement went down to 36 million, well, now you actually have 36 million Atlas that you can pull out, and it's specifically because the value in the ecosystem has increased that amount went down. So I think very much in line with benefiting early supporters and early participants.
Cool.
Cool.
We are well over the hour, so I think we managed to cover everything. I don't know, Michael, if you have anything before we close here.
I mean, I just had an hour of things, so I think I'm
Yeah.
good.
Time for the sip of water.
Yeah. Hopefully that helps. Again, setting expectations. We welcome your feedback. Nothing's being implemented right away. I think there's some great features in here that could drive utility and benefits. But yeah, we look forward to the discussion and prioritization and building some of these features out over the course of this year.
Yeah. We created the temporary Atlas Locker feedback channel, so if you have any thoughts, please elaborate in there. Let's keep a good discussion and make it easy for us to read it as well. So thanks everyone for joining today. We'll see you on Friday at the Golden Carnival. And next week, we'll have a brew all about fleet rentals. So join us next Wednesday as well.
Don't
All
miss
right.
it.
Don't
Thank you,
miss
guys.
it. And thank you for joining.
Just
Yeah.
while I'm here, real quick, just while people are still here, a lot of people have been asking me about the Fimble Mamba X new more crafting. I just got word from Chris today that it's likely that when he gets back from somewhere, I think it was like February 22nd, I believe is the date. You could expect him to most likely do it around that date. So if you were asking or you were wondering when, where, how you can get more Fimble Mamba X's, you can expect it around that timeline. I just wanted to say that while people are still here. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you on Friday and next Wednesday as well. Chat soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care.